Hello everybody, and welcome to the bonus vlog, where today I'm going to be talking about Penumbra and Amnesia, and we're going to break it down as to which of the two is actually the better game overall. In order to do that, we're going to have to break them down individually and to each aspect of their strengths and their weaknesses. And I think it's only fitting that we start with what actually started it all, which was Penumbra, which was created on Frictional Games' HPL engine, which actually stands for HP Lovecraft engine. The H standing for Howard, the P for Philip, and the L for Lovecraft. So it was actually named after HP Lovecraft, which kind of gives me the idea that Amnesia was always going to be their main title, and that Penumbra was only going to be used as testing the water. It did originally start as a tech demo, Penumbra did, and it actually turned into an actual series after there was quite a lot of interest in relation to the tech demo, so they actually made Penumbra. And because of it being called the HPL, it made me think that Amnesia was indeed was originally going to be their main title. It was what they originally envisioned as their first title. But after the demo from Penumbra, they decided to go with Penumbra first and see how things went. And the reason I think that is because Amnesia has a very Lovecraftian feel to it. The whole mystery, the darkness, even these unknown creatures are all very Lovecraftian-esque and really match in, which sort of further makes me wonder into my theory as to whether Amnesia was always meant to be their primary title. But before we go too much off topic, let's talk about Penumbra. So, Penumbra was based over a series of 3 episodes, each episode being between 2 and 3 hours, roughly thereabouts, maybe 4 at a stretch, depending on how quickly you got through the game. And we'll start with the story. The story of Penumbra was quite strong. The first episode had a very strong story. It was written well, it was planned out well, and it developed well as the game went on, where you kind of got an insight at the start as to what's going on, but at the same time you didn't really know anything about it. All you knew really was that Philip was searching for his father, and that who was presumed dead for the last 30 years. Which brings him to Greenland and to this abandoned mine, and basically all hell breaks loose from there. And as you go on, you begin to uncover notes as to different people that have been in the mine and sort of backstory, and you learn about the creatures. Like the spiders have mutated there, there's dogs there, there's all kinds of different wildlife there, and it gives it a really nice realistic worldly feel to it, as though the world that you are in is alive. And it gives you this horrible sense of vulnerability, because you are going into their world. You're going into these creatures' dens, their lairs, if you will. And all these little notes that are scattered throughout are just build this up. And of course then you start seeing them and you start running from them, and it gives you this real sense of just vulnerability throughout. Though with the first Penumbra there was the option to actually combat with your pickaxe or whatever, but it was really, really clunky, hence why it was taken out in later ones. So generally people just didn't bother with combat at all, they just ran and hid and just used pure stealth, which was later the thing with Amnesia. And the game unfolds as you go along, and then there was the additional character of Red, who contacts you through the radio. And he was a really well built character. He was this mysterious individual who was just completely and utterly mentally unstable, where he'd have these rash outbursts of just insanity for no reason. um, like where they get really, really angry and start, insulting you for no apparent reason and things like that. And it just sort of added to the mystery as to what the hell is going on, and it really, really built up. And eventually, you learn more about Red, and you learn the background about Red. Come the end of the first Penumbra, and then it moves on to the second one, which is where you later find out exactly what's been going on and what Philip's father was involved in. And it kind of weakens a bit as time goes on, because the problem with it is, with the Penumbra story, once you go into the second episode, is that they kind of reveal everything to you near enough straight away, and the mystery behind it is gone, and the intrigue behind what is actually going on is technically gone. And it's the slight downfall, but at the same time you get another character as you go along who sort of, how should I put it, basically he's in your head, and he's a part of what is going on, and his name is Clarence. And he's quite a sadistic motherfucker, to be honest. He's very sadistic, he's very dark, but he's dark and sadistic in a very comical way, where he's taunting Philip all the time and trying to intimidate him and trying to get him to give up, and it's quite comical at times. Just the things that he comes out with, they're just so dark and just evil that you can't help but laugh. So it adds a little bit of comedy to it, which I really, really enjoyed. So he's a really good character, and he carries through the entire second episode, but is then later removed because he's killed off. And then you have the third one, which completely and utterly boggles the mind, because the second one ended poorly, where it didn't really answer much. It didn't really give much into the detail of this alien race that is basically what Clarence was. And they didn't really fill in too much of the details. You kind of got the idea of what they were about, what they stood for, and basically the way they think. But you didn't really know anything else about them. And I thought with the third one coming out, when I played the third one, I thought I was going in and actually getting the sort of story about the aliens, and just lock it all in together, and just overall explain everything. And it explained nothing. It was a big, big, major dump of a game. There was no survival horror in it. Excuse me. There was no enemies in it or anything like that. It was literally just a physics puzzle game, and it was a real lame, half-arsed attempt to finish the game. And the story, the ending was just, it was rubbish, absolute rubbish. But the strength with Penumbra's actual story, and that is the two characters you come across, which are Red and Clarence. The two of them really are strong characters, and you can't help but like them, despite one being completely insane and the other being completely sadistic. And they're really enjoyable characters that really liven up the adventure. And then the story background that's happening on at the same time, which you discover through notes and things like that, is really, really interesting. And there's not an awful lot of plot holes in it. There's a couple of things left unexplained. I think that they could have gone into more detail about the turn gate, and they didn't go into an awful lot of detail. I don't think they really knew how to make him any more interesting, or how to really keep it going any longer than they did, which is a shame, because it was turning into an interesting game. But apart from that, the mystery behind it was interesting. I thought that the first Penumbra was really well written. The second one wasn't too bad, and the third one was absolute dung. Um, I mean, for story wise, it's worth getting Penumbra just for the first two episodes. Like, play the first two and just leave the third one. To be honest, that's the way I see it. So yeah, strong story, fell short at the end, but it developed well and there was likable characters there. So I've enjoyed the story very very much. The combat or the AI and the monsters in Penumbra were done very differently to that of Amnesia, which I'll get to once I talk to about Amnesia. The monsters were um, very persistent. They went on certain patrol routes, and you had to learn their patrol routes. And if you were caught, the chances were you weren't going to get out of there without at least getting half your leg gnawed off, or if you got out alive without having to restart the last checkpoint. It was the enemies were good in Penumbra. They were very clever. There wasn't many like in Overture. The only real enemies were the dogs. They were kind of weird, sort of mutated type dog type things. They weren't. They looked like dogs, but there was something weird about them. And then a sort of giant, not giant spider like you'd see in RPGs, but a big spider, a big breed of spider, and there was times where you kind of got into sticky situations with them as well. Those were kind of more chase scenes than anything else. You just had to get through a certain area quick enough before they basically gnawed your face off. Whilst the dogs were on patrol routes, and you had to work out the patrol routes and then work around them and just use your stealth. So they were really, really persistent, and it really added the fear into it because you couldn't just sit there and wait and they just disappear. They were always going to be in those areas, and chances are you're going to have to go around them a few times. You did have beef jerky to distract them, but it wasn't always 100% effective. So you want to rely on your stealth more than anything else when it came to Penumbra, which really added to the survival horror aspect. And you did get into some really intense situations, like with the spiders, where you'd have to go through nests and you'd have to be quick and you'd have to be dodging them left, right, and centre. Because if you just took them on in combat, you might as well kiss your ass goodbye straight away. So yeah, it was really, really good in that sense. The monsters and the AI of the monsters were good. They were persistent. They were absolutely ruthless. And even if you got away from them, they'd just return to their patrol, and chances are, as I said, you have to go through them again and try and get by them again. And there was just this constant fear of just having your face gnawed off by a dog or a spider, which really added to the horror and the overall fear of survival. And then next we're going to look at probably the most important of any horror game, is the atmosphere. And I don't think they did a bad job with the atmosphere, but I felt that it could have been a bit better. The game wasn't tremendously dark unless you really lowered the gamma and brightness down. The atmosphere, there wasn't an awful lot there. There was nothing there that was be kind of in your ear and you're kind of there getting the shivers up your back. There was nothing there. There was that sense of big emptiness, like you're in this big massive facility and this big mining area and you're just completely alone, with your only other human being that who's on the other end of a radio, who you've never met and is clearly insane and you don't know who to trust. But apart from that, there wasn't an awful lot of atmospheres there with Penumbra. It definitely wasn't the scariest of games, without a doubt, and the atmosphere really didn't help with that. The only part that really got the horror going in any shape or form with Penumbra was the actual survival part of it, which was trying to get around enemies and trying not to get noticed, and just knowing that if you did, the chances are you're going to have to start that area again. But overall, it's a great game. it is a great game. The first two episodes, especially. Sorry, I got hair. The first two episodes, especially, are really, really worth it. They're definitely worth investing into the collection. The story is pretty decent. As I said, it kind of falls short on the end. The AI are really intelligent. They're pretty good. The only fallback on the AI when I think back to it is they have to be pretty close to you before they'll notice you. Unless of course you're right in blind sight of them, then they'd notice you pretty easily. But they could go right by you, and if you were anyway hidden, they wouldn't see you. And then the atmosphere kind of fell a bit short as well. Like there was nothing there to kind of weird you out with the hearing aspect of it and sounds and things like that. So great story, good monsters, good on survival, but not quite there on the scares. So let's go to Amnesia, which was, of course, the game that pretty much started Frictional Games fame, where most people actually played Amnesia before they played Penumbra. And they updated the engine for Amnesia to the HPL2. And, well, most of us know what Amnesia is about. The title pretty much is self-explanatory. The story of Amnesia I found was lacking in comparison to Penumbra. It's, you take on the role of Daniel, who drank an amnesia potion, and he's recollecting his memories as he goes along. All he knows is there's this guy called Alexander, and he has to kill him and stop him. And there's no mystery there, because with Penumbra you didn't know what was going on. Whilst at the start of Amnesia you're kind of like, okay, well, I know what my task is, I know what I'm aiming for, and there's no mystery behind it, really. Like the story does unfold as you go along. Basically, it goes into Daniel's background, like basically the events that led up to the game, and basically what has sort of caused everything to happen in Amnesia. Like the darkness, that this evil darkness that is coming, and why the castle has all this sort of organic material appearing on the walls everywhere that damages you if you stand on it, and things like that, and why there's monsters around and things like that. And it kind of builds on that to a certain extent, and it fills in the background. It sort of fills in Alexander's background as well, who is the main antagonist of the story. And I will admit that the story kind of leaves you wondering who is the real monster, whether it was Daniel or whether it was Alexander, or whether they're both as bad as each other. I will say that much. But there was a lot of questions left unanswered in Penumbra, or sorry, in Amnesia, even more so than Penumbra. The reason being is that there wasn't really an awful lot told about Alexander. There was a lot told in the sense of the happenings before the game in relation to Alexander, but nothing very much into his actual backstory and into who he actually was, and how he pretty much gained as much knowledge on the orb and the darkness and things like that. The only sort of hint I got into Alexander was something to do with his wife, but apart from that, I don't know whether he was trying to resurrect her or what, but there was something about that I remember reading in a note that I found down in his lab, and that's basically the only insight. I don't know, like, he's got this goal, but I don't actually know what his goal is, and I don't know if it's explained. And a friend of mine pointed out a lot of these to me after he had watched the Let's Play of it. He was kind of like, well, that ending ruined it. And it felt like there was a lot of questions. Like, we didn't know anything really about the darkness. What is it? Where did it come from? What's its history? What's its connection with the orb? Why does it want it? Why does it want Daniel? the monsters weren't very clearly distinguished. I'm guessing that they were Alexander's servants originally, judging by when you're imprisoned by them. So I'm guessing that's the story there. It's just that the darkness has changed them. Um, like there wasn't really, again, there was no real explanation as to Alexander's intentions. Why did he want the portal open? Why did he want the portal? Why did he want to go into the portal? Why? What was his goal? What was he trying to achieve? And I know that it was something to do with dimensions or something like that, and because Agrippa was talking about was it where I think, and he had done it. He had gone through to another world, another dimension, things like that. So whether that was Alexander's plot and idea or what, I don't know. And the biggest question of all, and this was again pointed out by a friend of mine, and it made me actually wonder, was why did Daniel drink the amnesia potion only to relive it all? Again, I don't understand that. Why would he drink the amnesia potion, write himself the letter, only for him to put himself through it all again, suffering from amnesia? That part I don't quite understand. Maybe it's because he couldn't live with himself. Maybe everything he had done had gotten to him, but that's only assumptions. I don't think there's any hard evidence as to whether, why, or how. So yeah, it's got a lot of plot holes in it and a lot of things left unanswered. As for the AI of the monsters were they were good. Like, they were scary. I mean, if when you did look at them, they were quite scary beings. I mean, you wouldn't want to meet them in a dark alley, that's for sure. Um, but they kind of fell short. They weren't as strong as they were in Penumbra, I don't think, because the problem with the monsters in Amnesia is that they appear randomly, and like there's a whole build-up where you don't see anything for a long time, and then you kind of see something going around the corner, and you're like, "Ooh, what the fuck is that?" And that's fine. Like, I understand that. That's really good building and a really good build-up. But the problem is that after that, they don't appear that often. There was only one that I can think of that was actually properly scripted, and that was there the whole time. And that was down in the waterworks. The others are only really activated when you've either collected a specific item, or you've sorted a puzzle, or something like that. They do have a habit of appearing in your path that you have to go back through. But apart from that, it I didn't feel that they were quite as strongly done. I preferred personally the idea that Penumbra had, where they had patrols and you had to get around them, because it meant that you came in contact with them that little bit more. In honesty, with Amnesia, I don't think you actually came in contact with the enemies enough. Now, people would probably argue with that and probably say, well, sometimes less is better, because otherwise it'll get what I myself call Dead Space syndrome, where the monsters are just practically fighting each other to get there in the limelight. I'm on the game, yeah! And they're all there like trying to get a piece of the action. So yeah, but I mean, I think they could have maybe made the monsters that little bit more frequent without overusing them. The one monster I will say that was done absolutely brilliantly and fucking terrified me was in that cellar, and you've got the water, and if you step in the water, the thing comes and eats you. And you can't see it, but you can hear it, and you can see where its feet are going in the water. That was probably the scariest moment in that game, and it was done brilliantly. By far, it was done brilliantly. But the other monsters were just lacking. They lacked the tenaciousness. They lacked the ruthlessness of that exact creature or of the enemies of Penumbra. They just they didn't have that ferocity, that stalking kind of feel to them. You knew that once you got by them, that was it. You were safe. You were long gone from them. You didn't have to worry about them again. Whilst with Penumbra, you knew well that you're going to have to go back through the area and go by them a number of times and escape them a number of times. Um, so that's why I think that they were slightly weaker in Amnesia than they were in Penumbra. Atmosphere of Amnesia was there's no comparison in to Amnesia and Penumbra when it comes to atmosphere. Amnesia is the clear winner there. The sounds in Amnesia, the ambience, the sounds around you were truly terrifying. The reason for this was because they were unidentifiable sounds. There's no way that the human mind or ears could identify the sounds that you were hearing whilst you were playing that. There was times when I'm kind of there and I'm like, it sounds like a lawnmower, it sounds like a strimmer, it sounds like this, it sounds like that, and my brain just couldn't, it could fire guesses as to how the sound was made and what the sound could be. But there's no way of directly saying, that's it. And it creeped the shit out of me. It really did. It just left this dark, broody, horrible sense of just something is very wrong here. And it just left you with the hairs on the back of your neck standing up as you went through. Like, even this was happening really early in the game as well, like before you even came in contact with a monster. And the thing is, you know bloody well playing Amnesia there's going to be monsters, and you're just waiting for them to appear, and you're there thinking, yep, it's going to appear now, it's going to appear now, it's going to appear now, and it doesn't. And it's brilliant. The atmosphere just is that good. It makes your brain kick in and just say, yep, we're going to be jump scared soon, or we're going to have something jumping out at us soon. And your imagination does all the work for you, and it does all the work for the game, because your imagination and your mind kicks in, and you're like, yeah, I'm scared because I can't identify what the hell is going on, I can't identify what I'm hearing, and it just leaves you in this sense of confusion and bewilderment and unfamiliarity. And there's nothing scarier than something you cannot understand, because your brain just can't identify it, and it just sets fear in you. So when you hear something that you can't make out what it is, it's just like, yeah, I'm a bit nervy now, and that's just the way that our minds work. And Amnesia did that brilliantly. So, atmosphere-wise, fantastic. It was Amnesia's strongest point. And it's what really brought out the horror. Because 9 times out of 10, the time that you were most afraid in Amnesia was due to your own mind, as opposed to something in front of you or something jumping out at you. Your own mind played tricks on you. And that was thanks to the brilliant atmosphere and the brilliant ambience of the game, and it just worked brilliantly. Not to mention the darkness and your lack of vision. Your sanity didn't help either, though I don't think the sanity meter really made that much of a difference in the game. It was just put there as an inconvenience more than anything. I think the game would have been just as good without the sanity meter, to be honest. It made your vision go like, and things like that, but I don't think it was necessary. I think that the game still would have been remarkably scary even without the sanity. Even if Daniel wasn't afraid of the dark and lost his sanity because of the dark, I think it still would have been pretty good. So with those established, overall, what is the better game? I suppose you could say. Well, there's no doubt about it that Penumbra had the better story. They both ended terribly, I'll admit that. But Penumbra had a better backstory and it didn't have as many plot holes. I felt that Penumbra was stronger on the story front. Like even Overture, the first Penumbra episode, actually got an award for its writing, which just goes to show that yeah, it was good. Um, but Amnesia's story had a lot of plot holes and there was a lot of things left unanswered, and it wasn't that interesting because you knew from the get-go what your task was, as opposed to this mystery which unfolded as you went along, even if in Penumbra the mystery unfolded a bit too soon. But nevertheless, it was still, I found Penumbra a better story, and the characters were better as well, and they were a lot more interesting and they were a lot more entertaining and fun than say Daniel was or Alexander was, um, or even Agrippa and all them. Like the characters in Amnesia were just boring. I didn't find them interesting. Excuse me. I didn't find them entertaining in any shape or form. Whilst in Penumbra I did. So Penumbra definitely wins the story side of things. The monsters is very close because with like I said with Penumbra, they have this patrol. They're persistent. They're ruthless, and you're going to have to go through them a number of times because they're on this patrol. You have to learn to patrol, and even then, you can make a mistake quite easily. Whilst with Amnesia, most of the time the monsters appear at a specific time, like when you say solved a puzzle or you found a specific item, and they'd appear. They only like appear a couple of times throughout the game, and occasionally they might appear in the distance, but as soon as you just disappear behind a wall and that's it, they're gone. Um, so I think, but again with Amnesia, they pulled off that cellar brilliantly, to the point that that monster that was in the cellar, you couldn't see it, but you could hear it. You could hear its footsteps. You could see its footsteps, and you knew that if you went in that water, you were a gunner. And it was scary as hell. But I just think that the other monsters let it down, because you only come across that thing, and on top of that, that led to one of the most intense chase scenes ever in a video game. It was absolutely insane. But I don't think that one scene and that one creature is enough. I just think that the other enemies let it down in comparison to Penumbra, to the Penumbra monsters with their ruthlessness, their just tenacious abilities to just keep coming at you and not giving up when it comes to it. Whilst in Amnesia they were easy enough to avoid. Whilst with Penumbra it was either a case of getting out of the area through a door once they saw you, or getting into a container where they can't get at you. And with the dogs especially, the mutants were a little bit easier to get around, but the dogs, especially in Penumbra, they were really, really tenacious, and they would not stop until you either hid from them in a container that they couldn't get into, or you escaped. It was either that or you're dead, one or the other. So I think when it comes to the monsters and the actual survival aspect of it, I think Penumbra comes slightly out on top. The horror, though, unmatched. Amnesia is a clear tick for the horror. So overall, I think Penumbra is a slightly better game, only by a slight margin, because the story-wise, yes, Penumbra is the clear winner. Horror-wise, Amnesia is the clear winner, and it's just that fine line between the enemies that differentiates the two of them, and just by a slight margin, thanks to the cellar monster, that's what makes the margin so small, is the invisible cellar monster. Otherwise it would be quite one way. I think that overall the enemies in Penumbra are that slightly bit better. I think they're a bit more they add more fear than, say, the normal monsters did in Amnesia for me. The reason being is because of how ruthless they were and how determined they were to get you. Um, but I mean, it is a fine line between the two games. But if you're going for story, it's Penumbra all the way. If you're going for scares and just an overall sense of fear, go for Amnesia. Penumbra is the better story. Amnesia is a much scarier game. Penumbra is not nearly as scary as Amnesia is, um, but definitely I would prefer Penumbra personally, even with the shit third episode. To be honest, after playing the third episode, I just deleted it out of my memory banks. Really, I accepted the end of episode 2 as just the ending, because for me the third episode of Penumbra just didn't answer anything. It really didn't. It was just terrible. It even answered less than what Overture did, or sorry, Black Plague did. But again, Amnesia had a buttload of fucking plot holes. So yeah, so that's my verdict between Penumbra versus Amnesia, and it's very marginal, but despite a very slight margin, I think that Penumbra is slightly, only by about that much, the better game. But I enjoyed both games. I loved them both to death. The thing is, I know there's the whole argument that, oh, but with Amnesia there's all the custom stories and everything. I'm not boiling this down to custom stories. Like, yes, there's the winner there for value of your money, because you can just download a heavy free custom stories, but I'm just talking about the games themselves as opposed to involving mods and custom stories and things like that. But overall, yes, Amnesia is not quite up there with Penumbra for me. I think Penumbra was just slightly different and slightly better. It was better developed. I found it to be more entertaining, thanks to the characters in it. But Amnesia was definitely the scarier game, without a doubt. So yes, I'm going to leave it here for this vlog anyhow, and I hope that you've enjoyed it, because it's the first time I've done something like this. It's something that I've been wanting to do for the past few weeks. I just never got around to doing it. So, excuse me, I did say I was going to do it, and I've done it now. It's something that I want to talk about, and it's something that I've really enjoyed doing. I might make this a regular thing alongside the weekly vlog. It kind of depends on how much news I have to add into the weekly vlog. If it's a case that it's kind of, I don't really have a lot to talk about in the normal vlog, I'll just join the two of them together. But if I do have a lot to talk about in the normal vlog, I'll make a bonus vlog and I'll talk about something about games and or something like that. Because I was originally thinking of doing a type of video series like this, but I ended up not doing it because I just don't have the time right now. But let me know what you guys think of the vlogs, because if it was a case that enough people liked the idea of these kind of videos, I might take a stab at doing them properly. And just sort of see from there. But let me know what you thought of this vlog, and if you'd like to see more like it, because I did enjoy this. I did enjoy talking about the game and everything. Games, and basically breaking them down as to which was the better of the two, and just breaking them down individually and everything. It's something that I really enjoyed doing. So this is running on for 40 minutes. Jesus. So I'm going to leave it here for this one. And please let me know what you thought of this vlog, and if you'd like to see more. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, and have fun.